What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today I have a very special episode for you. This is a game that I've been brushing up on and playing a lot over the course of the last week. It's a game called Starsector. This game is what I would imagine would happen if you tried to mix space pirates and zombies with X3. And so if you've played both of those games and you imagine them both having a baby, you would more than likely end up with Starsector. A lot of people are comparing this to Mount & Blade Warband, which I think is close to the mark. Although I think that sort of negates the fact that, well, I guess Mount & Blade does have kind of an empire building mechanic to it as well in vanilla and a lot of the mods. So anyways, with Starsector, the goal of the game is that you just have a little tiny fleet of ships and you just start out in the galaxy doing whatever you want. The combat is virtually identical to Space Pirates and Zombies. It's a top-down 2D space brawl. But aside from that, it's got a lot more depth and a lot more stuff to do. And so if you want to be a trader, if you want to be a mercenary, if you want to be a bounty hunter, if you just want to explore the galaxy and find things out there, you can do any and all of those things whenever you desire to do so. So anyways, let's dive on into Starsector. There's going to be a lot of explanation in this episode. It's gonna happen. Like, there's a lot of things to take in, and so as far as this episode goes, within the confines of 30 minutes, it's gonna be hard to hit all the content, but I'm gonna try to get you in, get you acclimated, show you some combat, maybe make a little bit of money and show you how the game flows, and then by that point, hopefully we'll be right around the 30 minutes mark. But this is a complicated, deep game that's gonna require me to do a whole lot of explanation on nearly every screen that we're gonna be involved in. So buckle on in and let's get started. We'll start a new game, and we need to pick our portrait. My favorite portrait is this guy right here. That's my guy right there, but I'm already using him for my personal playthrough, so unfortunately we can't bring him along. Let's go with, ooh, she's pretty cool too. Let's pick a portrait. There's nobody with like Ray-Bans or anything, which really makes me sad. I need somebody that's got some Ray-Bans on, or somebody with some aviators on. That's what I need, so that I can just pick them, and then we can just completely push it to the limit. Walk along the razor's edge. That guy's haircut right there. This lady looks like she got haircut tips from Mark Davis. Anyways, I'll take this guy right here. We'll go with that one. That one's perfectly fine. And then we got to pick a name for our character. I already got one ready to go. We're Attaboy Bronson. I don't need help pop-ups. Sometimes when I disable that, it still pops up in-game, though, so I gotta keep, like, sometimes you still get weird pop-ups every now and again. With the galaxy, you can choose whether it's young, old, or mixed. All this really does is it affects the amount of defenses, the size of the fleets, how developed the economies are. So if you're looking for a game that is like super in flux and territories are constantly under attack and being taken, young is more than likely the way that you want to go, in my experience. And if you want a world that's, or you want a universe that's structured and has like territories that different factions hold that have been established for a long period of time in well-developed systems, you're going to want to go with like an old system, I guess. I don't honestly know if that's 100% true. I've played on young, average, old, and mixed, and frankly, it all kind of feels a little bit the same. You do see more development on old systems. There's a lot more satellites, and there's a lot more interesting things built in the systems. But anyways, let's dive on in. You get a choice right here. I would suggest taking the Wolf-class frigate if you're going for the standard start. You can be a bounty hunter where you can start with a frigate. You can be a scavenger where you'll start out with a combat freighter. I don't like the combat freighter very much. Some people are big fans of the combat freighter. I can't seem to get it to work for me. I do great work with the frigate, but with the combat freighter, I always seem to just fall down on the job and do poorly. So anyways, you can also go with an expedited start if you want to, and you can start out with a cruiser, a destroyer. That's going to allow you to kind of skip the beginning portion of the game where you're building up and getting stronger. But I personally find that the beginning of the game is actually the most fun, where you're building up and you're scrapping things together and you're finding derelict ships and whatnot and just trying to piece together a fleet from whatever you can. I find that to be the most entertaining part of the game. You can also be a freelancer where it's just randomly generated and they just give you whatever you get. It's a very, very interesting way to play the game, but we'll go with the standardized start with the Wolf-class frigate for now. Our secondary ship can either be a kite shuttle. The kite shuttle is basically a harassment unit. It's kind of like a skirmisher. It's really, really fast. It's hard to hit with any of your weapons. It doesn't hit that hard unless you make it a torpedo boat, but at the same time, it just like makes the enemy feel like they're losing, even if they're not. And so anyways, it's more like a skirmisher. It's there to harry the enemy, I guess. And then there's the Shepherd class drone tender. The drone tender is pretty good. I don't mind it. It's pretty solid. The choice between these two, I'd probably go with the drone tender. It's going to be easier to get a kite shuttle. Like, this thing I think costs like 8,000 credits at the beginning of the game, so it's pretty easy to buy one. This is the more expensive ship between the two if you're looking at it at a purely cost analysis. So anyways, we'll go with that, and then we'll play on the normal difficulty. We're going to skip the tutorial. I do highly recommend that you play the tutorial if you've never played the game before. This is a game that has a lot of hotkeys, a lot of complication, a lot of stuff going on, and the tutorial is actually short, succinct, and to the point. They do a really good job with the tutorial, teaching you the bare basics that you need in order to survive. And then from there, I'd recommend just playing the game with a wiki open and just Googling. Like, every time with this game that I've thought it'd be nice if I could do this thing, and then I Google if you can do that thing, you actually can. I just didn't know the hotkey for it. So anyways, play the tutorial. It'll give you some storyline. It'll also teach you how to play the game really, really well. It usually only takes about 25 to 30 minutes for the tutorial portion, and you'll start out with a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of really good ships by the time you get out of the tutorial. But we're going to skip it because I want to go with the classic experience. We've got to allocate some skill points. We've got 4 trees. We've got combat, leadership, technology, and industry. Combat, pretty self-explanatory. Leadership, little less explanatory. It has to do with logistical planning and also tactical planning. It's going to give you some combat bonuses, some out-of-combat bonuses, command bonuses, stuff like that. We've got technology, which is basically anything that has to do with technology. So there's stuff in here that'll make your scanners better, your warp jumps better. There's all kinds of good things in here. We're not going to go through them one by one, piece by piece, or we'll be here all day. And then industry. Industry has to do with manufacturing, salvaging, and getting loot effectively. So if you're interested in getting more loot, industry. If you're interested in your out-of-combat world being a little bit easier, technology. If you're interested in your supply usage and kind of minimizing that and also maximizing the amount of ability that you're getting out of your commissioned officers and your crew, bam. And then if you just want to shoot stuff in the face until it stops moving, bam. Find the requisite category, look at the guns on your ship, and put the points where they need to go. We start out with a plasma laser. Target analysis is a really good starting place to go with your initial skill points. This skill right here will pay back in dividends if you're planning on doing any type of combat. I highly recommend maxing this out first if you want to do a combat playthrough. People can disagree with me. If you went with the combat frigate instead of the wolf, you'll probably want to go with ordnance expertise instead and get that to level 3 so you get 15% more missile or 15% more damage. But either way, target analysis works for that too because its level 2 ability gives you 15% damage to shields. Its level 1 is not for specific weapons, and so this is a really, really good all-around perk that I think any combat pilot should have. Let's go! Alright, so here we are. We are in the system, and I'm going to press the space bar to pause. This is our little fleet down here. This is our little guy. We've got a number of abilities that all need to be kind of moved around, and so I'm going to go through these one by one so that you know what I'm clicking on as I click them. I don't like to have things where they are right now. I'm going to put emergency burn right there. It's going to damage our ships but give us a fat speed boost so that we can outrun any threats. This is our scanners. The active sensor burst will actually ping things for you on the map if you're not seeing them. Aside from that, we also have our distress call. If we get into trouble or run out of fuel, we can light that off and hopefully a friendly faction will come get us. We've got interdiction pulse. What that does is it cancels the engines for 9 seconds or 6 seconds on any enemy that's like in your radius. So this is used to keep people from running away so that you can continue attacking them. We also have sustained burn that allows us to just fly faster. You take a nerf to the handling of your ships on the overmap, but this is basically your travel mode. That's all you really need to know about that. Don't be worried to use it. We also have scavenge. Anytime we find a debris field, we can use scavenge to go ahead and grab random fuel and knickknacks out of there if we want to. And then finally, we also have Run Dark. Run Dark effectively runs the engine at the lowest possible setting that it can. It kills your transponder, and it effectively makes you invisible unless somebody bumps into you or unless you're actively trying to seek them out. If they actively sensor burst you, they'll find you, but if they're not running around spamming sensor burst, you're basically going to be able to walk right up to them and put the gun to their head. It's a pretty useful little ability. We've started out in Jungala, in the Corvus system. This is where you always start out. The systems in this game do seem to be randomly generated. So for example, in my last playthrough, my personal playthrough, this grouping of planets doesn't exist. So there's no 3 planets over here. The main stuff is all here inside this inner asteroid field, and this is right here. But these debris fields are moved around. The warp gate is like over here. This right here is like down this way. And then this guy doesn't even exist at all. So there is some random generation, although the systems always have the same names. The systems always have the same core planets. It's all the extra stuff, the accoutrement, in the outer ring and the non-central area that tends to be kind of randomized and moved around, I guess. But you'll learn to memorize the features of the system as you play more and more. This is the entire sector that we dwell inside right now. There's a whole lot of trouble you can get into in this universe. A general hard and fast rule is anything that's inside of a nebula tends to be safe, civilized space. Not always. But you see all this stuff in the center that's labeled? This stuff right here is called the core system. You don't want to leave here until you're strong enough to defend yourself. So like 9, 10 ships. If you're feeling risky, sometimes I'll go out and I'll try to poach one of these unexplored systems out here for survey data for a bunch of money, and I'll just take my chances. But just be aware, when you leave this central core, it gets markedly more dangerous in all these unlabeled worlds. Doesn't mean you're 100% going to die if I fly to, say, Delta Braddock, but Delta Braddock has the propensity, it has the capability of being much more deadly than anything you're going to see in this area. There's the possibility there, I guess. Let's go to Jungala. It's a jungle world. Every single planet in this game has like a description of the planet with like a background and how the planet got there and how it came to be under the control of the faction that it's under the control of. This planet is under the control of the Hegemony, which is one of the factions. When you start out the game, you're actually on really good terms with them. They are not friends with like anybody most of the time, though. They kind of just conquer and destroy and do what they do. We've got a refill on fuel, so let's go through the UI. We've got 32,000 credits. We have 80 supplies. Supplies are a very useful resource in this game. They naturally go down just from like feeding your soldiers and upkeeping your ships, but they're also necessary for fixing your fleet after combat and whatnot, so you're always going to be having a load of supplies on board. We have our crew on the left, the amount of crew we have. On the right, the amount that's recommended, how many Marines are on board, just in case you're planning on doing any station invasions or anything else like that. We have our cargo hold right here. We have our crew allocation right here, how many we can hold versus how many we have. And then we also have our fuel capacity right here. This is our speed when we're traveling, so we're at +9 burn right now. It'll double if you put on sustained burn. This right here is probably the most important thing in the entire game. Fleet-wide combat readiness. This is effectively kind of a... It's kind of a metaphor, I guess, for how ready to fight your fleet is. The lower that percentage is, the less ready they are. It means that, you know, they haven't been sleeping properly. They haven't been eating properly. Maybe there's leaks in the bulkheads. The ships have not been properly maintained. The weapons have not been reloaded and oiled and greased and all that kind of stuff. It's essentially an abstraction that kind of describes the situation that your fleet is in. If this is low, you will perform much worse in combat. Your handling will be worse, your fire rate will be worse, your damage will be worse. So you kind of want this to be maxed out at all times, and 70% for now is the maximum that it can reach without us taking special talents or whatever. When this is regenerating, every time we go into combat, this is going to reduce by like 20-30%, and it'll slowly tick back up over the coming days. When it's reduced, you'll notice that your supplies drain at a much more rapid pace, and that's because they're using the supplies in order to do all the stuff we just talked about. Fix the bulkheads, repair the armor, reload the weapons, all that kind of stuff. This down here is the fleet-wide hull. It's just a measurement of everyone's HP. This right here is how many repairs need to be done. I think it's like a timer or something like that. I don't know. I don't think I've ever looked at that window, in all honesty. We have our sensor range. I'd love to bring that up. That would be great. And then we've got our detection range. But our transponder's on right now, so, you know, everybody's going to know who we are. The most important thing to do when you first start the game off is just make sure that your transponder's on. If you're in any civilized system, you should have your transponder on unless you're engaging in clandestine black market dealings. So the transponder, what it does is it essentially handshakes with all of the friendly and enemy ships in the system and introduces you to them as an upstanding member of society. If that's turned on, law enforcement will assume you're up to something. They will question you. They will come aboard. They will have suspicion, and it will affect your reputation eventually. Because the only reason somebody's in a civilized system without their transponder on is that they are trying to smuggle or tax evade. That's right, there's taxes and there's smuggling in this game, and it is quite lucrative to smuggle. Just make sure that if you're gonna smuggle, you do it with the transponder turned off. So like this planet right here, probably a really bad idea to turn our transponder off because we're inside the scan range of all 3 of these ships. They are all going to instantly dive bomb us when we turn it off and be like, hey, your transponder's off. You having a malfunction? And we're going to be like, oh, yeah, I am. And we're going to turn it back on. The second time, they're going to be like, listen, man, this is getting a little suspicious. And then the third time, they're just going to be like, all right, bro. And it's going to tank your reputation because they assume that you're a criminal. Let's go ahead and head on out. Actually, I need to pick up some more crew real fast. We'll go over to here, and we will buy some crew. You can control-click on any of these resources right here, and it will autofill you to maximum. If you control-click a second time while you're already at maximum, it will take all of the stock in the store. So that's how that works. We have 60 crew and 60 fuel. Let's go find some pirates and go beat them up. I'm going to save the game first, obviously. You should always save your game. This game doesn't have an autosave as far as I can tell, so be spamming that F5 about as frequently as you can. If you don't like the travel speed of your fleet, I would suggest that you hold down the shift key, and it's the same thing as doing control spacebar in Mount & Blade Warband. It makes you go a lot faster so that you can get around. We're going to duck in over here. There's a pirate base over on this side, and the game is very generous in that it gives you a couple small groups of pirates in your first zone that you can pick on, and you can kind of bully and beat up. Don't be too crazy about attacking them though, because sometimes they'll group up and they'll attack you simultaneously, and you definitely can't handle that combat. I think we baited that guy right there. I think he's going to come after us. There he is. There he is. There he is. All right, this is going to be a little bit of a risky combat because he's got a drone tender, but I think we can take him. Let's move into engage, and we will continue the combat, deploy both of our ships. Okay, and so there's our 2 little ships on the tactical map. From here, you can pause the game, and you can basically command it with right-click like an RTS game if you really, really want to. But I'm going to press the tab key instead, and that's going to take us directly into combat. And we're just going to kind of hang back for right now. We've got our drone tender. You can see him over there deploying stuff. Let's talk about what some of these things mean on screen so that, like, you understand what's going on with the combat. The hull is our HP. When that hits 0, we die. Flux is basically the measurement of the amount of heat that's built up inside of your system. By and large, with most of the weapons in this game, you don't have to deal with ammo or ammo resupplying. Pretty much everything supplies its own ammo, and then the game basically deducts supplies at the end of combat while refitting the ships in order to denote that, like, yeah, it did cost you something, just not in the throes of combat. The exception are missile launchers. Those have limited ammo, but everything else has unlimited ammo. It just generates heat, and when that maxes out, you overload and you're defenseless for like a really, really long time. So go out of your way to try not to overload. Overloading is a really bad plan and basically means that you've lost. In 99% of combats in this game, whoever overloads first dies. We've got our weapon groupings down here in the bottom left. We've got a pulse laser. I've got that already linked up with me, so I'm controlling that on the ship. We've got swarmers. I've already pressed Control 2 on that weapon group in order to put those on auto fire. We've got our point defense lasers right here. I've already pressed Control 3 to put those on auto fire, but you don't really need to because they're already on auto fire by default with the default loadout of this ship. So anyways, we'll put it back on the pulse laser. This fight might get a little bit ugly. We can right-click to put our shields up. You can see that right there. When your shields are up, you move slower, and every time your shield takes damage, you take flux. Yeah, I was going to say, he's going to be able to mess with my ship pretty good. We also have a special ability called a phase jump that I can do with the F key if I want to. And I do want to. Let's go ahead and put some heat on this dude. Okay, flux is getting kind of high, so we're going to fall back. Kind of jump away real fast, and then we're going to dump our flux with the V key. They're over there just dealing with our drones. He's already spinning out. His engine's already taken care of. So I think we're doing okay right now. Our drone tender's kind of falling back a little bit more aggressively than I like. I kind of wish that he would stay in it, but he's focusing on eliminating the enemy's drones, which I'm okay with. Let's continue aiming here. You can hold down shift. And if you hold down shift, what'll happen is your targeting reticle will follow your mouse. Some people like to do that. I find that there's a case to be made for using the shift key in order to target after the mouse, and there's also a case to be made for free aiming. I think you should start out holding shift, and as you get better at the game, you should start free targeting and focusing on maneuvering, because maneuvering is important. Let's jump in on this dude. He's going to fire some missiles and whatnot at us, but I'm really not interested in letting him escape. I'd rather not. He's going to try and run for the hills right now, and if he gets away, it is going to be a problem. Got a couple hits right there. I'm going to jump inside the radius of his missiles and kind of direct him away from the top of the map, which is exactly where he's heading right now. You can evacuate any combat by heading to the top or the bottom of the map. That will get you out of this thing about as fast as possible if you need to. I just can't catch the little dude without my shields down, but we're taking hull damage. Alright, I'm going to jump in on him right here. He doesn't really have... He's doing a pretty good job of juking me right now, isn't he? This is kind of embarrassing. I'm going to keep trying to close the gap on him. I got to get my projectile speed buffed up. That's what I really need. My drone tender is not helping at all here. There we go. Finally caught him. Oh, and he's got a flame out going on. Good for us, bad for him. Come on, just kill him already. There we go. Finally shot the little dude down. That took way too much effort. I hate these drone tenders in combat because they're so fast and they're so hard to catch. Our ship is a really, really fast ship, and they can just be a headache. We can consider ship recovery. They've got a combat freighter right there. I will consider taking it. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take the combat freighter. We've managed to kill the meat, save the metal. And then we get to pick through the wreckage, and we can take all of the goodies that we ever desired to take from him. There will more than likely be more pirates around here. Fair warning. Well, we got a bounty right there, so they gave us 3,300 credits and 7,000 XP right there. So we've advanced to level 2. We should probably throw a level 2 into target analysis. That'll help us with burning down people's shields. Our pulse laser right now is not a great weapon for getting rid of shields. It's really good at destroying hull. It is absolutely terrible at killing armor and killing shields. It's not a great weapon for that. Our ship is kind of like a finisher. So we want to get a bunch of ships in our fleet that focus on machine gun weapons to tear down shields, and then explosive weapons to tear down armor if we wanted our ship to be at maximum effectiveness. Basically, we're going to need to have like a 1-2-3 punch, like a cold space 3-piece for getting rid of the enemy. But anyways, we've got to refit this ship down here. As you can see, our combat effectiveness has gone down. And so we got to wait for that to go back up to 70. And as you can see, our resource usage has gone up like crazy too. You might be a little bit worried about your financial situation in this game. I would urge you not to be. So for the first like 3 years that you're playing the game, you have this thing called a military stipend. I don't remember where it's listed at. I don't remember if it's in the command menu or it's around here somewhere. All right. There's a thing that explains it, but we have a monthly stipend because it assumes that we just graduated from the Naval Academy, and so as a reward for completing our commission as an officer, they're effectively paying our bills for the next 3 years. Every month you'll get a check for like 14,000 credits. So like, don't worry about money too much in the early game. Don't make stupid purchases, but at the same time, if you have to spend like 8,000 or 9,000 credits, don't panic either. Here's the ship we just picked up. It's in a little bit of rough shape, but it's got a heavy autocannon on it, which isn't too bad. Heavy autocannon can do a little bit of damage. Since he's already got shields covered. Oh, there's no weapons here. Interesting. There's no weapons here? You guys don't have any weapons here. All right, well, let's repair our ships at the dockyards. It's going to be 12 supplies. That'll put us back up to combat readiness instantaneously, and usually it costs the same amount of supplies that it was going to cost you anyways, so why worry about it? We'll take those right there. That dropped us down by about 5K. We're going to need to buy some more fuel. We need some more crew because we've got a new ship that needs to be filled out. And then we can sell off this metal plating right here, even though it's worthless. We'll make like 75 bucks. 75 bucks is better than no bucks, I guess. If you wanted to buy new ships and you don't want to do recovery, you can go into the fleet menu down here, and you can go to the buy menu. And you can kind of buy what you want. My recommendation is the Lasher frigate. It's very, very good. The Lasher, the Wolf, both very solid ships. The Kite can be solid if you just put torpedoes on it. Aside from that, though, I would stay away from the Hound. I'm not as big of a fan of the Hound. One thing you do want to pay attention to, though, in this game is you see these marks up in the top right. That's how many flaws the ship has in manufacturing. And so this gives the ship a permanent debuff, and that's why the ship is so cheap. You can remove the permanent debuff, so I guess it's not permanent in the... It's not permanent in the literal definition of the word, but it's permanent until you get rid of it. Like, it can't be repaired with supplies or whatever. you can get rid of it if you go to the refit menu down here and you hit restore. You can get rid of, like, so this right here has 3 negative things wrong. It's got structural damage, which means that it has 20% less HP. It's got an erratic fuel injector, which increases the amount of fuel that it uses. And it's got unreliable subsystems, which means that its peak operating time is much less than our other ships that are in good repair. I do wish that you could remove these one by one, because some of these you can tolerate, some of these you cannot. But actually, the way the mechanic works is you can only get rid of all of them. You can't just pick one of these things to get rid of and, like, click it and buy that off. I wish you could, because some of these debuffs are way worse than others. Like, some of them you can tolerate, some of them are absolutely awful, and this guy happens to have one of the ones that's awful, so our fuel usage is going to be kind of dirty on this dude. I'm going to auto-fit this guy. We can pick between Overdriven, which will give him a chain gun, and a couple dual machine guns. Or we can give him the standard loadout, which will give him, I think, a mortar right there. I'll probably go with the overdriven version. So there we go. We now have an overdriven version of this ship. And this guy is actually going to chew shields pretty hard. Everything on him destroys shields or destroys armor. So he should be able to leave guys wide open for us to come in, tackle them, and take them out. All right, back out into space. Let's go find ourselves some more trouble. So out in this neck of the woods, it's looking pretty quiet right now. It's looking pretty quiet. I'm not seeing anybody around that means to do us harm. But with pirates, that don't mean they aren't there. Interesting. There was only one pirate fleet over here, huh? There's gotta be another pirate around. Where's he at? There's always like 2 or 3 groups over here. I guess we only got one group of pirates this time around. That, or they went out to, like, attack something or mess with something or go mess with a convoy. I couldn't honestly tell you, but usually there's 2 to 3 groups out here. I was looking forward to smashing all of them. All right, well, this situation is certainly not smashing, but we'll head on back to base over on this side, and we'll find something else for us to do. Maybe we'll find a freight mission or something that we can take part in to move some product around, make a little bit of money, jump out to hyperspace possibly. Ooh, scary hyperspace. That'll be fun. We go down to the dockside bar, and yeah, there are a lot of missions over here. We can talk to the quartermaster and offer to buy her a drink. In venerated tradition going back thousands of cycles, the quartermaster wants you about how her provision request got mixed up and she was shipped 14 units of heavy armaments instead of 20 of supplies. A mining drone with half its Lud-damned computer fried on rads couldn't do a better job than the idiots in Fleet Supply, she says, knocking back the rest of her drink and slamming the glass down. So she'll give us 14 units of heavy armaments for 20-something supplies. Usually this is a good trade, but I don't know that for certain. And on the plus side, that raised our reputation big time with the hegemony. Normally, to get a +3, you got to do something pretty good. Let's leave the bar real fast, and let's see what's going on with these heavy armaments. So these are illegal to trade on the open market. Gotcha. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to unload these over here in the black market tab. No harm, no foul. Hopefully we don't get caught. We might get caught. I think I came in here with my transponder on. But if we get caught, we're probably just going to lose like -2, -3, which basically just negates the bonus we got for doing that lady a favor. And we got $4,000 out of the deal, so like pragmatically, I feel like we did a really good job. This guy over here, he's got 180 units of food that urgently need to be delivered to Thulian Raider Base in the Thule star system. It's 7 light years away, and we can hold 149 units of cargo. He'll pay us 10 G's to do that. That's actually not a very good price for 180 units of food. Normally when you're doing 180 units of food, it should be around 14 to 16, so he's lowballing us right now. We could take the mission. We'd have to ditch some supplies, I think. Yeah, that'll show us if we buy this guy a drink, it'll also tell us where a pirate base is. We can read all of this stuff, but it's all repeating text, and so it's kind of like when you play this game for the first time, I do recommend you read all of this because it is important, but at this point, it's kind of like Mount and Blade for me. I've memorized like a lot of the dialogue that goes on in between like the missions, and it's all kind of the same, just copied and pasted with different names. And so anyways, if it seems like I'm speeding through things, I'm sorry. It's because I know what all these missions are just looking at them, and I'll do my best to explain them to you, but I'm not going to read all the dialogue because we're already at 31 minutes right now in this episode. and we've only done one combat, and we've done very, very few things. One thing you can do at the beginning of the game, if you feel like you're going to be worried about cash, is you can talk to a station commander. And if your reputation is high enough with his faction, you can take a commission with his faction, which essentially means they own you from now on. You've joined the military as a mercenary, and every single month you will collect a stipend for being a part of that military. And it's a lot of money. Sometimes it's like 35,000 credits a month, which is like, whew. On top of that, if you kill anybody that they're hostile to, you'll get a bounty, which means that money starts to stack up if you can find fights to jump in on. Just be aware that in the early game, if you're going to take a commission, it can ruin your reputations with a lot of the other factions nice and early on in the game, and it can take you a long time. After you resign this commission, it's not like Mount & Blade Warband where it resets you back to 0 with your reputations to all other factions. In this game, it resets you, but like -5 or -10 because your enemy or the other people of the system know that at one point you were a part of their enemy, and so they still don't trust you. So just be aware that taking a commission does come with a little bit of weight attached to it, but you can also make a lot of money if you're strapped for cash. So it's something to consider. My name is Splattercat. This is Starsector. If you want to see a little bit more of this game, I wouldn't blame you. In 30 minutes, we barely touched the tip of the iceberg. As an introduction to the game, though, I feel like we did a pretty good job. We showed off some combat, we fought some pirates, we reclaimed a derelict ship after killing everybody on board, we engaged in a clandestine black market trade arms deal, we talked about joining factions, all that fun stuff. So anyways, leave a like on this video if you want to see a little bit more. Be very vocal about this one. I would love to do a few more episodes. But this is Starsector. You can get it on the developer's website. This game's currently in early access, but honestly, its early access is better than most games 1.0 releases. It's a really solid title. There's like little UI things that I think I could complain about with this game, but by and large with the overall gameplay experience, it's more or less flawless. Like there's little issues with like the AI, there's little issues with the UI, but other than that, those are like minor issues that I wouldn't really dedicate, a whole lot of talking to. They're just little things that I expect to get patched up in the early access. But aside from that, pretty flawless game. It's really, really good if you're into anything like Spaz, anything like X3, anything like Mount & Blade Warband. You will enjoy this game. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie gaming every single day so you don't have to. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode, check out the Discord link that I'll have for you down below. We can talk about this episode if you wanted to. You can also check out my Twitch stream down below. And on top of that, I don't really have much else to say. Take it easy, everybody. Goodbye.